Welcome to Audio Knucklebusters. Today we are going to be talking about home studios versus what I'm going to call built-to-record studios. They're dropping like flies because of a lot of reasons, I think.
Pretty rare sighting these days.
Before we get into that topic itself, I want to introduce a couple of individuals that are also Audio Knucklebusters. First of all, I've got Jen. Jen, how do you pronounce your last name? Vesberg?
What? No, that's just my email.
That's just your okay.
No, my last name is Bees.
Bees.
Like a honeybees. So I
Okay.
go by Jen Honey or Jen Honeybees.
Jen Honeybees. Real quick, just a little introduction. I met Jen probably, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
We worked together at an advertising agency located in Dallas, Texas. So I met you at the ad agency, and we were both hired on to be, editors?
Yeah.
Audio
Recording
people?
engineers and really fast editors.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, it's actually quite diverse. So listening to your first podcast, I was quite impressed with how you guys got into audio. And my story's completely different.
Okay.
So I taught piano for about 10 years. And before that, I really wanted to be an audio engineer. And I kind of toured Full Sail. And I was a little taken aback by the price. And I don't know why, but the advisor kind of convinced me this is not the place for you. This is more technical, and everything you've told me is more creative, producing and songwriting. And he's like, I think you do really well here. You're extremely motivated. He's like, but, maybe think about something else. So I was like, that kind of crushed that for a while. So taught piano, got into audio editing, wasn't really into mixing at that point. And I did my own little projects. And every time I did them, whatever I was composing, I was like, why does this not sound so good? It's missing the sheen and the polish. I have the balance between the instruments. What's going on here? So I took it on myself to just learn everything that I could about mixing and try to develop a portfolio based on that.
I have to give you accolades because I've watched you there at the agency, and you said that very, very well, very nicely, to be a quick editor.
Mm-hmm.
Even I was a little intimidated maybe my first day there, knowing that we had what some might consider a celebrity on an ISDN line. It's a little bit nerve-wracking when they have a certain expectation level. It's your first time on the gig, and all the pressures are there. So accolades to you. I watched you
Thank
handle
you.
that. As a matter of fact, if I could say so, I was probably just a little bit jealous because it was like, gosh, this person doesn't like me near as much as they like Jen. But that's okay because we got to do it together, right? We got to work together.
Absolutely.
And that worked out incredibly well. So we know each other from a professional standpoint. We had never worked together before then.
Right. And, Andrew who was our boss at the studio, he always told me great things about you. And he said, he worked with Pantera and he listed all the bands. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's like an audio engineer rock god. So I already had I knew you did amazing things. So when I met you, I was like, this is Tim. This is so cool.
I appreciate those kind words, but I'm going to tell you, this man right here sitting next to you, he's the rock god.
No.
I got to watch it happen. I got to watch him transform into, can I say it, Sterling?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Stop.
I thought he
You
already
can't
did
see
say
it, but I'm turning
I got to
red.
watch this guy transform from a 19-year-old kid into a man pretty quick. Because that's
Gotta
the way it
grow up-
was, right?
Gotta grow up fast, yeah.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Anything else that you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I've worked in artist development with up-and-coming rock bands in Dallas, high schoolers, college students, and, it's very different than just recording them because everyone has different personalities and they want you to make their song amazing. And it's just a very different type of group of people to work with, but always a good time.
Okay. All right. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to move on to Sneeze Boy over here.
Howdy. Sorry, it's good timing.
Where's the sneeze
Mr.
button?
Robert Bogart. Robert,
Time
fellow audio knucklebuster. First of all, you were a student of mine
Yes.
several years back. 5 years back. That's several years. That's more than two. It's more than a couple.
five.
More than a
Several.
few.
Okay.
Which is 3.
All right.
I've also really latched on to Robert. I'm sure he's asked himself, why? Why me? why do you call on me for
Why do you keep
these
calling?
Yeah.
I think I
lose my
figured
number.
it out. It's always computer related, so
That is one of the big reasons why I want you on the team. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I don't keep up with firmware. I don't keep up with software. I don't care about any of that stuff because it just kills my vibe, man.
it's not really fun. I don't think anybody thinks it's fun.
You took this gig on knowing that it was a dangerous job right off the bat.
No. I don't think I thought about the danger side of things, but looking back on it now, after a torn Achilles.
Oh,
But-
yeah. Well, I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about the dangers of hanging out with Timmy.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I'm always calling this guy. It's like, hey, Robert, hey, we've got this gig. It's about 200 miles away from here, and I got nobody.
Not
Are
only
you
does it
in?
not pay much, but we get to travel.
We get to hang out and talk.
Free food. Ooh.
They don't reimburse your gas mileage.
No.
No.
But yeah, I've definitely gotten used to going about 200 miles somewhere in Texas with Tim.
Okay.
Definitely
yeah.
grown to enjoy it. So
And that's
hung
yet
around,
another
Part of
subject
the
matter.
gig. Part of the gig.
You were a student of mine.
Yes.
I lassoed you basically at the end of your last semester and just said, hey, I like how you function. I like how you operate.
Yeah. I think at the time you
Did I
said,
promise you anything that I shouldn't have?
No,
like,
I don't think he promised any
don't
like
give
a
me
lot
that
of
look.
money or anything. So yeah, no, we're good. It started off, I think you were saying you needed like just some sort of personal assistant or something. We didn't know exactly what.
Yeah.
And then kind of over time just turned into, hey, we're doing gigs together. We're knocking this stuff out and I'll cover something for you or whatever. And
Sure.
yeah, here we are now,
Robert is the youngest out of all of us. And I'm proud to say, that he has been able to hang in there with me on a lot of stuff that I don't think there's anyone else that would, in their right mind, would have gone, let me get in my car and drive to where you are. So thank you for that.
Well, I enjoyed it. I had fun. Plus, a lot to learn about. I think the first gig we did was the Rich Tones chorus back in Max Media.
You remember the Rich Tone course, don't you,
How
Sterling?
could you forget that?
Yeah.
150 screaming women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So tell us about yourself.
Well,
Robert.
before I met Tim, I was kind of bouncing around. Went to Auburn for college initially. Nothing music related. It was electrical engineering. The last music I'd really been into was, I think, in middle school I was in band. And then after that, in high school, just got into sports and a lot of video games. And that's kind of where I got into computers. College comes around and I drop out. Just like, I don't know really what I'm doing. And ended up at MediaTek after that. And I guess, well, after all the partying and whatnot, I found myself playing music on my computer. So instead of playing video games, I kind of went back to music. And I think Jen had touched on that, but I was making stuff on my computer and I was like, it's not really sounding right. And that's how I got on my journey to MediaTek. That's where I met Tim. And then he started asking me to do work with him, and here we are.
Fast
Awesome.
forward to today. And so,
So
you're...
Even though you guys, all four of us, our paths are quite different, the beginning part, the end part's real similar. It's always something musical. It's always that lingering question of, why doesn't this sound the way I want it to sound? And then that sparks the next thing. It's, well, I'm going to find out why. Human curiosity.
No, it does indeed, which is going to lead me into this whole thing about home studios versus built-to-record studios.
Right.
I went into it kicking and screaming because, Sterling, you and I, we were raised in the studio. I haven't spent one day of my adult life basically outside of the studio. I was raised in a built-to-record studio. I mean, that's what they were there for, and it costs a lot of money to do that.
Yes.
I like the idea of getting in my car and driving to work. Because at the end of the day, it still is work. It's what we do for a living. Mm-hmm. It's how we make a living, which kind of ties into the whole home studio thing versus professional recording studio, where Hundreds of thousands of dollars usually go into these facilities, which, by the way, are usually rendered useless once the studio is defunct. It was because of I'm going to call it a tragedy that happened with Dallas Sound Lab.
Yeah.
Those guys had been there
Accident.
for 30 years.
It was a broken pipe.
Yep.
It was a broken water pipe.
Water main, yeah.
Blessing in disguise? I don't know. Maybe if you were to ask the owner, he would probably go, hell yeah, it is. I remember a day when Russell Whitaker looked right at me. He goes, it's getting about time that we need to get out of here. And it was approaching the 30-year mark.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, well, why? Because there's so much history here. And he said, sometimes you just kind of overstay your welcome. And it's kind of apparent that we're not that welcome around here because it's hard to get certain things taken care of.
Yeah. He's
And I went,
looking at
wow.
it from a business standpoint. We're
Exactly.
looking at it from an artistic standpoint and a
Exactly.
sentimentality. He's looking at it like, I got to make a bottom line here, kids.
And so many times, you and I both, Sterling, we watched the decline of large studios.
Oh,
we
yeah.
watched it happen.
Firsthand.
How many of them turned into schools?
A lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
A lot of them, and that's a whole other subject within itself, because I personally think that there's the ratio of schools to places to work is really lopsided,
Yeah.
and there's no way that can sustain itself. That's not self-sustaining.
It's not if these kids that are coming through here, and I call them kids because most of them are considerably younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a shift of mentality over the last 4 to maybe 4.5 years that I was away from teaching.
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years ago, it was tyranny. It was really hard to get these guys to come to class, pay attention, come back from their breaks, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It is to a degree now, but I've seen a shift in the way of thinking with these guys, and that is that because most of the kids that I'm working with now, they aren't thinking I'm going to go to work in a large recording facility. They are definitely thinking I'm on my own. I got to make this happen on my own. So I need to grasp as much professional information as I possibly can.
At least they're not fooling themselves.
True.
They're not making something out of it that it ain't.
And I've also noticed that everyone's got their own agenda. I've said this before. I'm not. We said this on the intro podcast. I'm not running anyone else's race but my own. You said the
Exactly.
same thing.
Yeah.
We're just running the race.
Yep.
The mindset used to be, and of course this was with the decline of major facilities coming to an end. The mind shift was, instead of me getting a good gig with a corporate company, which that's what Dallas is made
Sure,
up of,
sure.
right? Corporate.
Jingle City used to be anyways.
I mean this with all due respect, but when I think of a vacation spot, I don't think about Dallas, Texas.
No.
And I wouldn't if I lived anywhere else in the United States. When I think about Dallas, I think about Dallas as a place that I come to do business.
Yeah, it's a
and
business
come
center.
in and get it done and move on.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great thing. The students that I'm seeing now, they've already got planned. Most of them do. There are the few who are they're gonna f off no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of, as instructors, it's not that our hands are tied, but I tell all my students, look, I can bring you to it. I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink. It's the same thing. The ones who are thinking ahead, they've already told me. And by the way, they're the ones that, are making A's in the class. They're
Yeah, they
getting
do
their
well.
work done. They show up on
They get it.
time. They're getting it.
Yeah.
And they've already told me, I want to do this. This
Yeah.
is what I want to do. Okay.
I can't imagine someone that's there not wanting to be there. It seems a little silly to me. Why are you even here if you really don't even want to be here? It just seems kind of
People go to school just to buy time, avoid going to work.
evidently,
and stuff.
yeah. Evidently, they're avoiding the draft or something. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm
Joining
old.
the military would be
I'm
an
old.
awesome thing. I wish they'd take me.
But yeah, just I don't being in a situation where you're allowed to be creative, it's encouraged, please do so. Also, there's a technical aspect to it. It's a very specialized field. Go have fun. And then I really don't even want to be here. I don't understand that attitude, and I guess they're going to drop off the cliff anyways on just about anything you throw at them.
Yeah, I forget
know.
what that's called. It's
It's called being lazy, I guess. I don't
Well-
know.
Going into video production.
kids.
Well,
Get off the lawn.
I also, as an instructor, I'll tell these guys, look, I understand life occurrences happen, but when you do this on a regular basis, like show up 45 minutes late for my class, you've already missed.
Yeah, you've
you know,
already
a
blown the
third
session
of the class.
You've already blown the session.
And it is it's not discouraging because, the ones that keep me motivated to want to tell them more are the ones who do show up.
Sure.
And the ones who go, man, you make this look so incredibly easy, or you make this look fun, or when they have that first 5-1 surround experience, where they just go, so we're going to be learning this. And it's like, yeah, it's nothing but smoke and mirrors. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's a bunch of lies. My little icon on my desktop under Pro Tools used to just say lies.
Yeah.
I customized it.
To move us along just a little bit, talking about home studios. So some of the, I'm going to come up with some of the cons that I can think about. I have owned home studio.
Hold on, before you do that,
Okay.
let's start a betting pool here.
Okay.
No matter how many cons Tim comes up with, I can probably add at least 10 more.
I'd believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I see where you're coming from.
It's only because my thoughts are going to spur your thoughts.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
All right, so some of the cons that I can kind of think about is, one would say, cost. Even though cost has come down probably tenfold from the days of owning brick and mortar studios, there's still costs involved. There's also what platform that you're going to be operating from, which is going to be the best one. There's also having to keep up, as I mentioned earlier, with firmware, software, updates, upgrades, OS systems for the computers. Are you Mac? Are you PC? Are you this? Are you that? Do you have this plug-in? So for me, I do not really want to cater to that, but have been forced into it. I think we all have. I mean, if you're gonna make audio, you have to have certain tools. I honestly believe Pro Tools got the word right because it is a tool. It is not an end-all be-all. I am a Pro Tools user simply because I took the time to get educated in shortcuts. That has saved the day for me. Jen, I think in a roundabout way, maybe that has made things pretty much easier than they would have been had we not gone through some shortcuts. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Because when you're on a session and you have producers and talent all remote talking in your ear, and you have to edit on the fly, and they're also giving you instruction at the same time, so you have to multitask and pay attention, you really need those shortcuts, or the whole thing could very easily just fall apart, and you just need something that you could rely on without thinking too much about it.
Exactly. I've got a little story about that too. So talking about home studios, not to name drop, but a few years back, I got to go to Mr. Henley's place located in Dallas, and he's got a big setup there. It's a Pro Tools rig, and I mean it's like a big icon console and the whole 9 yards.
You mean the giant $100,000 mouse?
Yes,
Okay.
It's a nice
exactly.
size.
Clarifying.
It just absolutely flabbergasted Stan Lynch that I never touched the desk, and I'm going, I can do it all right here. Boom. I don't have to get up.
Yeah.
It's all done right here. So all the legwork, we set up a microphone for vocals. We set up a microphone for guitar. We set up a room mic for extra guitar room mics. It wasn't complicated at all. And once I sat down in the chair, it was like just shortcuts all the way. It was to the point to where he's like, man, I've noticed that you've never touched this desk. And I go, there's not a need for it. He goes, man, that would be so cool. Do you think I could learn how to do that? I'm going, you're Stan Lynch. Yes,
Of course you can. Yeah.
Next time you're in town, give me a shout.
Hmm?
I haven't gotten that phone call.
No. He's busy.
Should I
Busy
not
writing
hold my
hits.
breath any longer?
No.
Okay. No, but here's another thing. Here's a con. Having a system big enough to handle whatever you might be taking on. I know that my personal desires would be to have the largest system available, like a big, huge HD system or something of that nature. But I don't want to go spend that money for that. Not when I've got a perfectly good recording studio that I can have my clients spend their money for a few bucks, which it's come down so incredibly low nowadays for lease, shall we say, lease facilities, lease studios.
Yeah, they're trying to be competitive. There's no way that will ever reverse and put the home studio guy out of business.
No.
They'll never even
I
get
mean,
close.
we've all had a sip of the punch at this point.
Sure, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid.
I'm not suggesting that home studios be shut down or anything of that
No.
nature, but what I am
No.
suggesting is that maybe some of the folks that are doing this as a hobby, home studio hobby, and I get that too. I mean, folks who are, hey, this is fun. I get off from a hard day at work. I want to be a little creative. I can come in here. I can write something. I can play some keys. I can do this. I can do that. There is something very freeing about being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that leads me to the next thing is you and I were working at Dallas Sound Lab
Mhm.
at the time. So I'm 8 minutes away. My house is 8 minutes away, taking as the crow flies to a great facility.
Right.
Yet I have my home studio there. Not near as sophisticated as they are now, but I was completely drawn to that room. Every waking moment that I was at home, if I wasn't at Dallas Sound Lab working, I was in that room at home, not paying attention to family and not paying attention to yards getting mowed and, all life. I wasn't paying attention to life. So I would call that a con.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being really honest about it, it led to a divorce. Luckily, I got my wife back after promising that I would never do that again. But I think that was a part of it too, was just this, as I mentioned, the isolation. Sometimes you feel really isolated, especially when you're by yourself. But I didn't even know that I was alienating others because I was so focused on what I was wanting to do.
It is a room-size crack pipe in your house.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
I don't know. I mean, Jen, how do you feel about, do you have a home studio?
I do have a home studio, and one of the very many challenges is because, when your lease is up, you move frequently, and I don't have a house, I have apartments, so you have the different size of the room, the different acoustics involved in that, which are going to be your trouble spots and your frequencies, and so you have to deal with that every time, and so that's not fun. And then do you have people above you? Do you have people next to you? Are they like binge watching Netflix all day when you want to record? And there's always the temptation to, there's this really new mic or audio interface that you want to buy, and there's always the temptation to just put all of your money in your studio because it's more toys for you to play with. But when you're at someone else's studio, that's not your problem.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
No, exactly right.
Yep.
Apartments, I'm going to call that a con as well.
Yeah.
Before I had the home studio, we lived in an apartment, and my first thing was a keyboard and a couple of monitors, so I could hear what was going on. And same thing, it was... Man, I couldn't really sit down and do anything until like maybe 11 o'clock and more in the morning. I knew everyone else was supposedly going to be gone.
Yeah.
Including my wife, by the way. It's like she didn't want to sit there and listen to that all day long.
Right.
So I would call that maybe a con. I think another con might be talking about internet, speeds of internet, depending on where you live, depending on access to internet, things of that nature. So everything is pretty much, subscription based nowadays. This is kind of a cheap shot, but I think that's a real problem. You and I talking about internet. Now this was at a professional studio.
Mm-hmm.
This was on the Dime Vision 2.
When the internet conked out on us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere.
So a little story about that. My house is 75 miles away from that studio.
Right.
I was able to get in my car, drive from the studio to my house, download the files that we were needing, and drive back, and it was still downloading where we were.
Yeah.
So I would call that maybe a con too, if
Sure.
you're not in a real good area to get good reception. Of course,
Exactly.
after that incident, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you, but after that incident, the very next day or that next Monday, it got cleared up.
Good deal.
It got cleared up. I won't get into the mudslinging and all that,
right.
but it certainly,
No
And I knew that it would. And here's the reason why. It's because when it comes to the higher ups or maybe the management or whatever, if they don't have access to the stuff that they need, that's going to be a problem. They're going to get it taken care
Sure,
of.
they'll get it fixed. Where are you at on all this, Robert? You're fairly new to the game. We're sitting in your studio in your home.
It didn't take long for me to find out about the downside. I just bought a used console, and I'm happy. It sounds great. I go take a nap. I come back, and 8 channels are out.
Believe it or not, I'm not laughing at you, brother. I'm laughing in solidarity. I'm with you. But yeah.
So
understand.
that happens, and so you get all excited about your new gear, get everything set up, and then maintenance. Okay, now you have to start thinking about keeping it running. And so we've touched on it, but I think it's very nice to be able to go to somebody else's studio and think that's not my problem.
Yep.
And it works, or if it's not working, I can complain. This isn't working. Where's it working? So. Yeah, I guess something else too is when I'm running sessions here and something goes wrong, it's all on me.
Yep.
So definitely there's an element of being embarrassed, like, that doesn't always happen. That usually works, sort of thing, But I think just now jumping into it, there's more things that have revealed themselves that I have to pay attention to.
Right.
And so just more responsibility when you're running your own studio.
Sure. I think that hat comes with the whole dang ball of wax anyways, whether it's your studio or not. I mean, to a certain degree, if something's not working and it's not working and you walk in the room, there's certain bit of that falls on you anyways. But I get that. I get that totally.
I was also going to say that Sterling and I have been the recipients of the bad news coming from the client going, hey, this is busted. What are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We work for, a very prominent recording studio. So I definitely, and it spurred another thought too. Let's see if I can remember what that thought was. So you said upkeep, keeping up with everything.
Mm-hmm. Falls on you.
It falls on you. So
you immediately, when you take on that responsibility, you immediately fall into the category of studio owner.
Right. You're no longer just the producer, engineer. Right.
And I never wanted to wear that hat, ever. I was perfectly fine working with you at the studio and go home and
Are you talking about you were perfectly fine with never owning a studio?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I never wanted to have to own a studio, but now I have to.
Well, I think I alluded to it.
Things in my house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm coming from.
Well, and
that's a thing to talk
so this
about.
brings up some other stuff, and not to cut you off, Robert, but this brings up some other stuff too. So, if you go the distance and you put wall sockets in for your electricity, you run the electricity to get isolated ground on things so your electronics work. Now, this is in the house, right?
Right.
And I know people who have gone that distance. Have you done stuff like that?
Hell no.
Okay.
My wife ain't gonna go
You're
for
a smart
that.
man.
I think most
You're a
people
smart man.
haven't.
It sucks. It's a house. You deal with what you get, and if you're married with a child, your studio is not, even though it's one of the money makers, is not the priority in the house.
No, it absolutely is not. And on the business side of things, when and if you decide, I don't have to worry about this in my house now because I've been told I'm going to die there. But
I told Leah the same thing. They're going to have to wheel me out of here. I'm never moving again. So,
beside that point, when you sell your house, all that time, energy, effort, and money that you put into that retrofitting for your needs, it goes away.
Yeah,
Goes away.
I'm not working with U2 at my house. I'm not working with Peter Gabriel at my house. I'm working with Joe Schmo down in Deep Ellum or whatever, some local level guy who sent me his files from Thailand to clean up or whatever that he recorded in his basement. That's what I'm working with. You gotta think of it practically, because there are rabbit holes and potholes everywhere. Because no, I don't need a $10,000 Shadow Hills compressor for the guy down the block that just wants to write some tunes. you know? That's why I only have an 8-channel interface.
You mean you don't have one of those?
I'm still on Pro Tools 10.
Oh, man.
So look, man, and this last week over at Vinny's, I'm on Pro Tools 7.3.
Yeah.
Even
If it
even
works,
he
it
knows,
works.
a world-renowned rock star knows you don't need to sink a bunch of money into this thing to make it effective and make it work for
And
your.
sometimes updating or upgrading is a step backwards.
It can
Just
be.
one example, and it's auto-tune.
We are about to go down a rabbit hole.
Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready.
It's simple. So Autotune 7, which is the old version of Autotune, had a TDM version of the plugin, meaning the DSP could be taken care of by the Avid
The card.
processing chips, the
Yeah,
cards.
the cards, yeah.
And so with the jump to AAX, which happened at Pro Tools 10, I think. I don't know,
It
10,
it
11.
actually happened at 11 because I'm on 10 and I'm still doing
Okay.
TDM.
All right, so they got rid of it, and now Autotune 8, they don't have a DSP version that works on their new format. So the fastest Autotune out there is an old version on an old Pro Tools system they no longer make.
You
Exactly.
see why I don't deal with this?
Yeah.
So we took a step backwards in terms of latency, because you got somebody coming in saying, "Hey, I want to track Autotune live," heaven forbid. you
Yeah.
know, but they do, and you want to have a good solution for that.
So he's my solution.
Mm-hmm.
You've had to take care of your own, and I know, Jen, you've had to take care of your own as well, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to call that a con. You guys spurred some other thoughts. Traffic in your house, traffic in your apartment.
Don't get me
People
started.
coming into your dwelling.
Things go missing, tiny things.
Yeah,
Like
you know
for-
that, but
I've had an iPad go missing. That was bad, but on some more innocent stuff like charging cables, like I'm always having my phone charging cable, walking out the doors. So.
They're all with the socks, the lone sock in the dryer.
Yeah, I'm gonna find them all one day.
Where'd they
Socks
go?
and cables all together.
you will never find them.
No, they're gone, buddy. Jen,
But sorry to interrupt you.
what do you
I mean,
deal
a
with?
lot of this makes me wonder how many young people there are who have their home studios and whether they're doing EDM or any other kind of music. And if their goal is to get into a big studio in their town, even if there's not many left, does that experience really help them as far as interacting with higher end clients? Do they have the etiquette to work with them in their home studio? Did they learn it yet? Is what they're doing now helping them to get there? I don't really think that it is.
Yeah, studio etiquette. There are plenty of folk out there who can just lounge around and look like a slob and so on and so forth. Big difference between people walking into a professional environment, which home studios should be a professional environment if you're going to do it, in my opinion.
If you're getting paid for it, it is the very definition of professional.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I think you've got a really good point. Is knowing how to relate with people and knowing when to keep the mouth shut, knowing when to speak when spoken to, maybe, or and I had that problem too. As a 19-year-old, I remember the same guy that I saw tear into this remote control. Later on, we were working together. I found out that he was like, I was 19, he was like 33 years old. And was like a tech. He was a honest to goodness tech. And he got a huge laugh out of all of that. But later on, sitting in a control room, it took him taking me to the wayside and going, "Hey man, this is great that you're getting this experience, but you got to slow your roll, buddy, because you're making comments in there that no one gives a crap about." And so that was his way of saying, "You're going to get your chance, and the time's coming, but zip it up, let them do what they're going to do, and we're going to get along much better if you'll do that."
Yep.
With a lot of the up and coming folks. Now, once again, the students that I'm seeing that are showing great potential, they are very, very proper. Right now, I have a student, I'm very proud of him. He comes from what I'm going to call probably the Middle East. And he speaks 5 languages. He shows up on time. He gets his work done, and he's like one of my favorite guys right now. What's your goal? And he goes, "Well, I'm going to be, once I finish up here, I'll head back home. My father has a business that he wants me to run, and I have to know all this stuff. And it's like, there's some incentive for you.
Right.
You know, go learn it, come back, be good at it, and you'll be taken care of for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I wish I had a dad like that.
Well, it's you explaining that and going through that. It really just cements the fact that this is something that you're either meant for it or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You are, when you come into it, you may not know it, but you've already got those traits within you.
Sure.
The etiquette, the psychology of the whole thing. You know, you're already that type of person. Most audio engineers are very laid back people. They're not nervous. They're not freaked out over little bitty things. I've seen some of them like that. They don't last long.
I've seen live guys just jittery as hell.
Oh yeah, I'll try to get my buddy Ken in here, and he'll talk about all of that. But I think being a certain type of person is 50% of this gig.
I saw
You know?
Tim's eyes light up, and he's always, it's one of the first things I heard him say, and I've heard him say it a lot. And he'd say it in the classroom, he'd say, "You didn't choose it; it chose you."
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I didn't have a clue I wanted to do this. Never in a million years would I thought I would ended up here. But here I am.
I had a clue, but I didn't know that it was going to turn into what it turned into.
Right.
Which in a roundabout way, that's what I'm hoping AKB can become, is informative for folks to expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
It's real easy to say those things.
and
expect
hopefully-
the unexpected. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Well, I mean, maybe we can be a source of information for the information that they don't teach.
it's really
It's
hard to put
unteachable.
it out there when you haven't lived it. And I also think a lot of it can be cyclical too.
Sure.
I've often said that there's never a day that's like the day before it or the day after. I think that's very, very true. But I also think that we have a tendency to sometimes, at least I do, sometimes getting into a rut. And this is something that I'm learning about myself, is that I feel like even though I can't show being nervous or any of that around the players, the band, the whoever, and quite honestly, I mean, in the studio, there's no reason to be nervous, right? I mean,
Right.
I think that's why most studio cats, Robert and I have talked about this before, between live audio, PA systems, so on and so forth, you're right in the middle of all of that now.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things that he and I both, we kind of chose to kind of get out of it.
Right.
Yeah, we did a good amount of gigs together.
We did, and good paying gigs. I'm not poo-pooing the whole live sound thing,
No.
not at all.
It's
I
a
mean,
whole
as a
other
matter
beast.
of fact,
You know.
I say, for those that are gonna get into this industry, get to know all of it,
Yeah.
because it does go. They
Yeah.
used to say, "Hey, live and studio, you studio cats, y'all don't know, y'all don't know the first thing about live stuff." And that's not true any
No.
longer.
Well, it's they go hand in hand, but they are different.
They are.
There's a lot of techniques that are involved that are the same, but I enjoy both. And the thing I love about live sound that I've come to enjoy is, man, when that gig's over, it's over.
Yeah.
You're done. You can't sit there and play it 5,000 times and go over it and over it and over it and over it and perfect it. It's over. Go
Note
home,
in,
go to
note
bed.
out. Yep. Note in, note out. It's over.
It's gone.
So yeah, that definitely is an upside to the live sound side. of
Not that
things.
that's the subject we're supposed to be talking about here, but
Well, I guess you could say with studios kind of going down, engineers who were traditionally only in the studio
Yeah.
start picking up live
We've
sound
all done it.
gigs.
I'm
We've
right
all
here.
diversified.
yeah, I've had to pick up and do something I didn't think I was gonna be like or be good at, and I proved myself wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I love. I love proving myself wrong.
Well, kind of going back to the it chose you versus you chose it. I don't know anybody who's been in the business for any length of time who would really disagree with that. The argument kind of comes up, I guess you could call it an argument, would be, is it an art form versus is it technical?
Absolutely an art form.
Definitely. I definitely call it an
Just
art
because
form.
it is technical doesn't diminish it in any way.
Some of the producers that are younger than I am that we know would say very much the same thing. They had to become. They knew before they started rolling out the producer chops. They had to get technical first. They felt like being technical first, being an engineer first, would help them be a better producer. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
A lot of the engineers, for guys my age, engineers used to be. I've seen sessions where engineers were treated like a piece of machinery. Definitely, we're gonna wear this thing out. We're not going home until this thing's done. I think you and I have been on a couple of those
Sure.
those freaking sessions too. I remember very distinctly waking the client up who was right behind me. I'm not going to mention names, but hitting the play button and rewind button so many times. It's about 3:00 in the morning, and there's no sound coming at me from behind me, the person sitting behind me. And I turn around, and he's asleep. Reeled the tape off the machine, put it in the box, and said, "Hey, man, it is time for us to go home."
Yep.
What's some other things? Talking about home studios, what are some pros?
It's good motivation. It's right there.
It's right there.
I think that's also one of the biggest cons. It's right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I hate that. Where it's like
Double-edged sword.
It's right. It's like it's right there. It's right there. It's the double-edged.
You get used
yeah.
to seeing it.
Yeah,
For me-
and it becomes a piece of furniture almost.
For me, it's like living next door to Six Flags. I'll go tomorrow.
Right.
You know what
It's
I mean?
always going to be there.
It's always going to be there.
I love that excitement though, to hear it from somebody else.
Like when you get that new piece of gear, and
Sure.
you just want to play with that all day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then here comes the wife, here comes the kid or the dog or the two cats or the whatever.
Some
And-
people live alone.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
Maybe out on a piece of land somewhere.
That's true.
I guess a home studio in an apartment in the city is, I guess, different from somebody else's home studio in a small town somewhere.
They're all different. Yeah.
They're all
They're all
different.
different. They're all there for different reasons. Mine happens to be a professional one, and I think that's what I hate about it most, is that it's in my home. There's no decompression time from the time I walk out the door of my studio, and then here's the rest of my life.
That was my whole problem.
Yeah.
Without
and I'm
without a
always
doubt.
thinking about it, even though I don't want to be in there, because I'll walk in there and go, what the hell did I come in here for?
Yep.
So we're back on a con. I think so. Another pro.
But to me, it's
Yeah.
a pro. It's a pro and a con.
Yeah, because
It's a 50-50.
Maybe it just depends on how you're feeling that day.
Yeah, it really
or
is.
Which
It's
project
all
you're
about my
working on.
perception. It's all about my attitude every day.
And I think that's why it's good to be around other people, have a team, have an accountability to where it's just like each one of you guys was accountable for showing up today. This didn't just by happenstance happen. It took everyone's energy and effort and thought process to show up and make this happen today.
Right.
I'm with that too, because I can tell you that there are so many times simply my mood dictates exactly what I'm about to do or not do.
Right.
It's so weird sometimes because I can be in my car somewhere between Egypt and Dallas, and I'll get in this weird, crazy, creative mode, and I can't get to my tools fast enough. Why? Because they're either back that direction or they're at the house. The moment that I step back into the house, I've got wife, only one child left at home, but it's now time to be husband and dad.
That's right.
And my wife has made that very, very clear, to the point to where Jen knows this. I had a building built. I think you and
I
I
remember you
talked
talking
about
about
it.
that.
Robert's
Yeah.
seen it.
It's nice.
Probably helped me load a few things in there. But anyway, I'm going to say 2 years ago, 2016, towards summertime, things really fell off quite dramatically work-wise. And I'm racking my brain going, man, how am I gonna do this? Hey, I've got this idea. So this building that I just had built, I'm going to convert it. I'm going to turn it into a professional studio. And she's like, no,
you're not.
No, you're not. No, that is an absolute no. And of course, me being me, I'm going to ask, well, why not? And the answer comes back because of that very reason. When you're home, because you made this promise to me years ago, when you're home, we have your undivided attention. I do not want that being a distraction for you.
Exactly.
And it would be. It totally would be.
Well, okay. That being said, hopefully I don't throw another con out there.
I have a pro here that
Okay, go ahead,
popped
Robert.
in my head. Okay, so Tim and I recorded about a month ago. It was that jazz trio, and what was his name? But he was doing his last day. I wasn't there. Y'all were doing vocals, and it just wasn't working out with his vocal coach.
Oh, okay. So
he has a home studio, and that allowed him to say, you know what, this. And so they're doing the session in a nice built-to-record studio, brick and mortar. And that last day of vocals just wasn't clicking. So he said, you know what, I'm gonna go home to my spot where I can just get in the zone and knock it out. So.
that is
Right.
totally a pro.
That is
Totally
a
a
pro
pro.
for sure. That's from a creative standpoint.
Especially
Absolutely.
with the home studio working in conjunction with the
Yeah.
yeah.
you know
Yeah. I mean,
No,
now this is a very organized guy, though. This isn't your run-of-the-mill, hey, guy off the street of Deep Ellum, hey, I want to record some stuff. Definitely has a plan together, what's happening with that music once he finishes. In his mind's eye, knows exactly what it wants,
Sure.
what he wants it to sound like.
Sure.
Speaking into that, definitely a pro because it really pulled the monkey off his back, so to speak. Speaking into that, a mistake was made that day, and that mistake was not by me, not by you, not by anybody else but the client himself. And I mean this respectfully. You're a vocal coach, right, Jen?
Yep.
Okay, so I mean this respectfully, so don't hate me for what I'm about to say.
I hate you already.
All right. It was a mistake on his part because he invited his vocal coach to a recording session.
Mistake.
that's like
that's
Tiger
bad.
Woods having his swing coach come out in the middle of
Yeah.
And you know what?
Right in the middle of the Masters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. And
Talk about
I
a
think
vibe
he
killer.
realized that about half a song in.
Dude.
This the vocal coach's head is in one area. As we all know, there's different levels of
That's a
listening. and-
technical thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a technical space,
And
technical
so-
perspective.
get the technical done
His
first.
way around this, I think he recognized that it was a mistake. He wasn't going to say it, and I wasn't going to say it. I'm just glad to be there, right? And so he goes, "Yeah, I'm kind of tired of this song. Let's go do another song." We get about a quarter of the way through that one. No.
He wasn't
And
feeling
so we
it.
do about, I'm going to say probably 3 or 4. Now, once again, this is a great band, a little trio. Totally had their act together. We had a great time up until that day.
Right. Right.
And so after it's all said and done, here comes the pro. He was able to go, I think it would be better if I really need to be by myself when I'm tracking my vocals.
Yeah.
With all due respect to both of you, talking to me and to the vocal coach, I think we're just going to call it a day on the vocals. And I went, thank God.
There you go. Exactly. No.
Because it not only was a waste of his time and
You could
money,
tell.
it was beginning to be a waste of my time, energy, and effort.
Right.
And I say this respectfully, but I'm thinking, how fast can I get done with this so I can get out of here?
Sure. We've all had that thought.
So definitely a pro.
Sure.
I would say on a much lower level because nowadays all I'm doing is kind of walking around with the laptop, got my little Pro Tools, iLock throw in there, is the fact that I can create from a desk. I can
Sure,
shut
you
the
can
door
create anywhere.
to a bedroom, put on the headphones, and kind of
Yeah.
go from there.
Sure.
But it's still not at the professional level. It's not going to be the same as sitting in a controlled environment where you actually have monitors that do their job,
Yep.
a room that does its job, does it well. Some people might go, well, what does it matter? Because most of the stuff that I'm doing or all of the stuff that I'm doing is being electronically provided anyway. When you start getting down into the nooks and crannies of stuff, the stuff that's sitting on the laptop, and I'm not talking about Pro Tools per se, but
Any DAW.
I don't have an HD rig.
Any
I'm not going
platform.
to go spend the money for an HD rig. Why would I do that?
Unless you're doing what our friend Chris Godby does, you don't need it.
Right.
Which is, literally mixing some of the biggest hits out there right now on his laptop.
Right.
Just in the box.
Yeah, in the box.
Chris is one of those guys that was on top of Pro Tools from day one.
Yeah. He knew that was the future.
He's at home in Pro Tools.
Do what?
He's at home in Pro Tools.
Pro Tools. He's been doing it.
Yeah.
15, 20 years of
He
Pro
makes
Tools.
it look like such a walk in the park. And I mean, he would be someone that I feel like we could all learn.
Oh, totally.
tremendous
Probably.
amount from.
Dude's get him over
Dude's
here.
a monster.
Well, he's going to be a guest. He's definitely going to be a guest.
He's back
funny
in Houston, and he's a
and
great
lots of fun
dude.
to be around.
Absolutely.
But what I was going to say is that I don't have a need for a rig like that. Honestly, I don't have the money for stuff like that. I'm not going to go spend that money for something like that, but knowing that in a year or two or three or four, that money that I've spent I'm going to have to spend it again.
It's already obsolete when you buy it.
So there we go back onto the con side of things.
The gear side of all of this home studio stuff, I even feel is irrelevant.
Yeah.
In a huger sense, the gear itself is irrelevant.
It is.
I mean, a
back
laptop,
to
some
people.
headphones, and some good monitors, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, once you get the signal going.
Yeah.
So that allows me to touch on maybe a con for the professional brick and mortar studios, which you kind of alluded to this a second ago, Robert, about upkeep and things of that nature. Sterling and I, we used to hear this from guys coming in to, we'll say the Sound Lab because it happened there as well, having different producers, different engineers coming in, could be East Coast, could be West Coast, could be from anywhere. And some of the first things that they're pulling out of their hat is a wish list. Okay? Now, I've only been like privy to maybe 2 in my whole career of sessions where it's like, don't break the bank, but do what you got to do. If you got to rent stuff, go rent it. That's not how we function here in Texas, is it?
No.
Not really.
No.
Now, if you're a Pantera or somebody like that, and you've got Terry Date going, hey, I need an MTR 90 tape machine here, 2-inch tape machine here by tomorrow morning, we're going to get that done for you. But he's got
Right.
go-to people that are going to make that happen anyway. All it took on our part was just a phone call.
Yeah. We just called Dream Hire in Nashville.
Yeah.
Done. You know?
Done deal.
Yeah.
And by God, they were there.
They were there early.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say the word expectations comes to mind? Like people walk in, they see your nice brick and mortar studio, and they think, oh, this person must have everything here. And so there's a high expectation. They start asking for all these things. And maybe that's what
Possibly.
you weren't talking about. But
Possibly. Here's all I know is there was only one place, and I'm sure that there are others, but this was back during the Kirk Franklin days, back in the late 90s. Los Angeles, went to a place called the Enterprise there. They had a pair of monitors that I didn't really care for, and I kind of brought it up. It's like, do you guys have another pair of monitors that we could check out? Basically, a list was rolled out for me. Yeah, we actually have a rental company that's attached to the studio as well. Yeah, for X amount of dollars per day, you too can have these
Right.
monitors, so on and so forth. So it was a business.
that's nice, though.
It is nice, but that's not how we roll here in Texas. That is
Yeah.
not how we roll pretty much anywhere that I'm aware of.
Right.
Maybe New York, maybe Chicago. Are there any other pros that we could think about?
Well, sound quality, I guess, is a given. Probably going to be better in the...
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Again, I think that all comes back to the gear. It's the gear. It's the ear,
Driver.
not the gear.
Yeah.
It's the person. And you can have all the money in the world sunk into a studio, but if you don't have the right team of people there, it's going to suck anyways. It's like handing a monkey a $250,000 Les Paul guitar. It's going to still sound like a monkey playing a guitar.
Yeah.
I am all over. It's the ear, not the gear. Mm-hmm. Because
I
trust
agree.
me, I learned from the best about it. Just use what you got.
And that's what I respect about our immediate boss, Andrew, at the ad agency, was he was almost apologetic when I walked in, going, I know, he's telling me, I know that you're used to these bigger, better things and the wow factor and all this stuff. And I got to be honest with you, this is going to be somewhat cookie cutter stuff. I tell you, the group of people that I got to work with, that's what kept me coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the work, yes. We have to make a living, yes. But it was the people, the camaraderie that we had, not only with Jen, but with our boss, Andrew, and then even the higher ups or his partners within the ad agency.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I love about our direct boss was that he protected us. He kept us from a lot of the other goings on.
Sure. And that's a good boss's
the
job,
chit-chat,
right?
if you
To
will.
insulate you from all of
And
that
he did
crap.
a great job at it. I don't know that I would want to have to fend for myself in that situation.
No, we're not really used to the corporate world, are we?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, artists don't tend to like that. And I consider myself an artist. I consider everyone in here an artist. We are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. That's
Yeah.
another thing about the home studio versus the big studio is I really don't care what anybody else thinks.
You don't have to put up with anything
This is my place.
unless it's your wife.
Well, yeah, she is the boss, but
Well, and that's a whole nother subject matter too. So
Yeah.
after so many times of being denied access to the brain or what you think about something or another, after a certain point, it's just like Sterling said, I don't care what you think because I'm not creating this for you. I'm creating this for another purpose. I don't
Right.
know what that is yet, but you know.
sure.
And along the way, I usually will learn something while doing that. Now, back onto the home studio thing. The thing that I'm learning is that I don't necessarily consider myself a perfectionist, but I do consider myself one that recognizes shit when shit is coming out the speakers.
Sure.
There's also that thought process of, the best technology in the world can only be as good as what is being provided into that technology. Another way of poop in, poop out.
It is basic knowledge, I think, common sense, or at least from my point of view, it's common sense, and it always has been that your song is only as good as the people that performed it. If you don't have a good performance, call it a day.
Yeah.
It is a lot of the things that I get sent to fix for people, they're garbage fires, man. They're a hot mess.
I love that term, garbage mess.
They're just
Dumpster
horrible.
Garbage fire.
And,
Yeah.
and I can
Dumpster
only do so much with the pitch correction or sitting there moving stuff on a grid, or I don't have a grid, so I got to create one. And, here I am sitting here going, now, wait a minute. I've got to put all this into perspective. How much are these people paying me? What do they expect me to do? And that's why one of the first things I ever do with a client, especially if I'm never even going to see these people, never going to meet them, they're across the world or whatever, if they send me crap, I send it right back and say, I can't work with this. And I've earned that right.
No,
Yeah.
not only have you earned that right, but you're thinking down the road because the truth is, and I got handed that to me years ago too by a mastering engineer. It's at Bernie Grunman's, and I thought I was doing him a favor by helping that audio out. This is in very, very, very beginning stages of. It wasn't Pro Tools back then; it was Audio Tools.
Right.
So I had
Sound
done something that
designer.
I thought was really cool, and I was helping him out, and he did exactly the same thing. He calls me. He calls me up, and he goes, "You did this, didn't you?" And I went, "Yeah, I did. Isn't that cool?" And he's like, "No, it's not. I'm sending it back to you. Send me the other files that you know
Before you f***ed it.
Yeah, and so
We're all professional
yeah.
basically.
Oh.
Speaking on that, I did have a session that was home recorded. It was a band. I'm sure you get several of these where it's an all skate. Everyone's got an opinion about stuff in the band. This was not. I did not do this in a home studio, but the band had recorded at their home studio and jacked it all kinds of different ways. Guitar tones that just sounded like I can't even describe it. Just horrible.
Sure.
It sounded like glass breaking.
Wow.
not such a good bass tone. Drums sounded like butt. The whole shooting match, and
it's all off because they can't hear each other.
yeah.
Garbage fire.
In surround sound, we call that a log jam moment.
There you go.
But it's a moment that just never stops. Anyhow, that being said, we had been working for about 3 days on this thing, and I'm really getting pretty upset with these guys because I'm going through this thing. You know how we a lot of times will record a top snare mic and a bottom snare mic,
Right.
And then they got caught up in this whole thing about, now can I hear the bottom snare mic pushed up 0.2 dB from there? Let's see if we can settle on it. It's like,
That's when I go, get out.
yeah, get off my lawn.
Go away.
Far away.
Because you're splitting frog hairs here. You need to stop.
That wasn't the only thing. So, like, I noticed everyone was there but the bass player. And I had been told, well, he's busy or some lame excuse. And it's like, this is your band's project. Everyone's here but the bass player. And I would love to include him in on this, but we've got to move forward. I'm on the clock. I want to make hay while there's sunshine, right? So I want to say it's about the third day. The bass player shows up. I'm going, it was something to the effect, I hear that you've been kind of under the weather or you've been sick. You haven't been able to make it here. I'm glad that you were able to make it here today. He goes, oh, no, I just didn't have enough time and or money to get here to the session. So I just decided to not show up for a couple of days, but I'm here now. And yeah, by the way, I don't like the way that bass sounds.
Well, you should have played it better.
I about lost it.
Yeah. Been there, done
Gritting
that.
my teeth, just going, I don't know how to say this nicely, but you lost your privilege to make a vote on how your bass sounds because you weren't here. And I'm not going backwards.
Yeah.
Everyone else has agreed upon these mixes, so you're going to have to,
Well,
I hate to be the butthole here, but you have to live with this.
The pro about that, if you're doing it in your home studio, is, well, guys, it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think we're good here. Here's your masters, and then you're not really out anything. You're all, and you feel that sense of relief when they walk out the door. I mean, I've had to do it. I've had to do it, and it's just like, guys, this ain't working out. Go practice something. I've had to do it, and it ain't fun, but man, when they walk out the door and it's not some big giant facility, you're not getting in trouble with your boss, it's just you, I'll say that's a definite pro.
Sure. Okay.
I just thought of a con off that.
Okay.
So when you have your own little personal studio, now all your friends who are musicians, who
I don't
play
have any
music,
friends.
Well, my friends,
His friends are my friends,
well,
and they don't like each other.
they see you all of a sudden. They're like, hey, can I get time in the studio? Can I get time in the studio? So now I have all these friends, and some of them get offended because they think that I'm ignoring them. But,
I'm going to be honest with you. I've never had that problem, ever.
yeah. So that might be
people
Just
I
because
go-
you're a nice guy and you're probably not charging them as much as you should be.
right. Well,
If they're asking for free time in the studio, they're not your friend, Robert.
Well, that's the thing, though, is this friend is trying to pay money. But
it.
he, and what made me think about this was the practice.
Oh, I got you.
So they come in here and they kind of want me to have these expectations that I'm going to produce them and help them get the sound.
Gotcha.
But it's like I'm sitting here and it's very apparent I'm just listening to them practice right now. And I'm just capturing a.
It's a paid practice, right?
And so it hurts their feelings when I tell them, hey, how about you
Right.
spend some time on this?
I've had some family members, not very close family, but like kind of distant family, distant cousins or aunts, uncles, whatever. Don't you think so-and-so can sing really good and stuff like that? And I have to be honest. And I'm just like, they're not ready for somebody like me. And that's that's the most diplomatic way I can say that without hurting anybody's feelings, and it's cool that they're doing it, but they're not ready for me,
That brings to thought, too, it's such a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's such a loaded question and it puts you absolutely right on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest. I don't know that I've ever been asked that.
It's very rare.
Have you, Jen?
Yes, and when you're hold on, let me fix my mic.
Yeah.
It keeps
You got a droopy
falling.
mic stand, man.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
a K&M mic stand. Should be able
you
to
need to
tighten
call
it.
K&M
What were we talking
up.
about earlier? It's the ears, not the gear. The driver,
There
not
we
the.
go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're dealing with, I'll say, teenagers, young adults, and their parents come to you and say, "Hey, what did you think of this? They just recorded their demo," and you can't tell them to their face, "That was really sucky. That was terrible. I don't know who was in charge of that, but they want my honest opinion." And you walk a very delicate line when you have to be honest with them. I don't want to lie and say that was fantastic. They're going to be the next whatever out there.
Yeah. So we all know that there's plenty of those folks out there.
Sure.
And
Their kids the best.
I always tell my students, Robert, back me up on this.
Yeah.
Tell them if I'm lying.
You're lying.
Okay. But integrity and your reputation is really all we've got.
Yep.
And it's up to you whether you want to destroy that or not. I'll admit it. I find it very hard to be honest with people when they ask that question, mainly because I'm thinking to myself, they knew exactly what they were doing when they asked that question.
Sure.
And
Fishing
I
for
think it's unfair,
compliments.
actually. I think it's kind of unfair.
They're not
Puts you in
fishing
a
for
spot.
honesty. Nobody ever goes fishing for honesty.
I don't think so.
This falls under maybe studio etiquette because
Yeah.
you're sometimes faced with kind of a
You have
difficult.
to be a diplomat. You have to be a psychologist. There's a lot of hats that you wear that you don't even realize.
Now, I will say, maybe I have told people that I'm just not your guy. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my bag. It's not my thing.
Tell people that all the
There's
time.
better
Constantly.
folks suited for that. I don't know if it's dodging a bullet per se, but at least it's, I'll go ahead and say it, like it's not in my camp at that point. So I think that being honest is the only way to go with it. But you're right. It's a very delicate thing. No one wants to hear the honest truth.
No.
That's why I quit asking a long time ago, because my wife is brutally honest.
Mine too.
Brutally honest.
Absolutely.
And I will know if it is something that she likes, that I'm probably doing okay. If she doesn't make a comment about it, it's just another day walking through the park that I get no respect for the day. But that's okay. It's okay. I think by not being honest, it comes back to honest later on, because in some form or
Absolutely.
fashion,
The
like,
truth is
oh,
easier to remember.
You should have to be nice about telling the truth.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
way to do it.
and maybe
Finding
one
the
of the
right
ways that it
words.
can come back
Yeah.
on you is like, oh, he thinks or she thinks that my kid or I'm
yeah.
this good.
And the truth
gonna
is
lasso
easier
them.
to remember.
Yes.
Period. So that's common sense. But are we on the right subject?
So what we're talking about is, okay, so what's the con? Well, this is, I guess you run into it both in brick and mortar and in the home studio when you have these clients asking your opinion, and it's
That's
not
when you
good.
turn into a producer magically.
Yeah.
You've been hit on the head with the producer stick.
Uh-huh.
What do you think? The magic phrase.
Your opinion.
changes
Yeah.
your life. And then you give it to them in a nice way.
And so I think what Tim was kind of saying is that they kind of got you, because as soon as you do give an opinion, you basically are saying, yeah, I'm a producer, or you're definitely setting yourself up for criticism.
That's when you answer their question with a
Right.
question. Are you asking me as just another listener, or are you asking me as your producer?
You have to qualify that you communicate a little more.
What are we doing here? You know?
Well, and speaking on that, I've learned to start asking the question. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with this or not, but asking the question, what is your end goal? What is your end purpose for this?
Yeah.
Sure.
You and I'm pretty sure all of us have recorded bands, groups, people, where there's no end goal. In other words, they don't know what that is.
Well, it always starts out as the goal is no goal. But by the time you get to the end of the project, there's a goal.
Yeah.
There's something they've got in mind for
Or
it.
they think that you're
that's
going to give
perfect
them
world
the answer.
scenario.
Like, here's what you're supposed to do. Because sometimes they'll look to you for all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Help them book more gigs.
I'm not a booking
Yeah,
agent.
so that's
I'm not
why
your
I always tell
manager.
people,
Yep.
even the folks
Yeah.
that I work for at the management level, with the guys. I made it clear up front. It's like, look, I'm a trench guy. I'm in the trenches, and I love being in the trenches. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But when it comes to the sparkly, shiny things that entice people to come in here, I'm not that guy.
Well, there was a guy that came to me last year or the year before, and just him and his piano, and he was like, well, I want somebody I can stick with, somebody I can get to know and get comfortable with, and blah, blah, blah. And so I did a few sessions with him, and it was just him hammering out some of his tunes on the piano and a vocal mic and in my little space at home. And then it turned into, well, I'm going to have this guy in Nashville, one of these do-it-all-yourself guys that can sit there and program everything and take my songs and turn my piano and vocal melodies into full-blown songs with a band behind it and everything, and then send it back to me. And I go, okay, why'd you hire me? Well, I want you to, produce it and mix it. And I'm like, he's already doing that.
Exactly.
And then he sent me back this thing that sounded like every single country song on the radio, slick, produced, and everything. And I'm like, dude, I can't compete with that. There's no way.
Yeah.
So you want me to continue with you, but there's no reason for me to. You've already found your...
So you almost have to educate them.
goose.
Yeah.
Go-to guy. Which we all want to be that go-to guy.
Sure.
Or gal. Excuse me, Jen. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a boys' club.
At least I got to join.
Yeah, you're in. You're in. You're doing the work.
Yay!
I think so often people have this holding of hand thing. So like he obviously
Right.
got super comfortable with you being the
Guidance.
guy.
Yeah.
I think that's held true with several producers that I've worked with
Absolutely.
as well. It's like
Makes sense.
you couldn't separate it. I'll bring up a name, Marco Flores, back in the
I remember Marco,
back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
We did the math on that. He and I had done over 60 albums together in a course of, this sounds ridiculous, but over the course of like 3 years.
That's a lot.
60. 60.
I can't really
60.
wrap my head
Zero.
around that.
They work quick.
Yeah.
They hire the
But,
best studio
you know-
musicians. They've got,
Yeah.
I
mean,
remember doing some of those sessions with
man, incredible. But once again, there was an end goal, which was we have an album to do. He always hired great musicians to
Yep.
come in, had his charts, wasn't note for note, but here's the charts. This is the way it's
Yep.
laid out. Let's take a listen to it. I want you to put your feel on this piece of music.
Oh.
And we would just
And there was
sit
no
there and knock that stuff
quibbling
out.
over little bitty minutia. It was, that's great, guys. Awesome.
And so
Let's go.
And I think
Go,
Sterling
go.
it probably got edited out, but I think you and I touched on this a producer's role. One of the biggest things that I always appreciated from producers, especially someone like Marco, knowing that I don't speak the language per se, I don't know what the hell they're singing about.
Right.
But he goes, look, I've done my job. We've got the songs recorded. I'm turning you loose. Go mix it. I'll see
Right.
you at the end of the day. Grab a bite to eat, and we'll listen to the mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be a problem if we have a few changes along the way? And it's like, no, man, you've made this so incredibly nice for me to be
Yeah.
able to do this.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of folks that you like to go work for.
Exactly.
And it was pretty enticing too, because here's a guy who basically talked me into talking about home studios versus brick and mortar, so on and so forth. I was actually the head engineer at the time when I got talked into. It's like, why don't you become a freelancer? This way
Right.
you can travel and you can do this. And we
Right.
did. We did a
Right.
lot of that. So I think there's a lot to be said for being independent, but I don't necessarily know that you have to have a home studio to be independent, which kind of brings us to the brick and mortar studios. The whole reason why I wanted to talk about home studio versus built to record studios is about a month ago, I'm in a leased facility, and a couple of guys come in from the Northwest. They're coming in from the Seattle area. Come to find out, we know lots of the same people. They know lots of the same people that Sterling and I know. And one of the things that I found to be just like going back in time for me, it reminded me so much of when you and I worked together, was the unspoken language that was that was going on between these two guys.
Yeah.
The producer, who was actively also acting as the head engineer, but he had, I hate to use this word, but assistant, because this guy was so much more than an assistant, just like how you and I used to be.
Right.
When Sterling and I would be put on a project, it was usually because I had a few more years experience. I would be the head guy, and Sterling was the A2 or the assistant, second engineer, whatever.
Or what did Zola Levitt call me that one time? Your flunky.
Oh, is that
That's
what
like
he
a
called you?
word from the 40s.
Wow.
He called me his flunky, but that's another story.
Flunky.
Yeah. You flunky over here. Anywho.
So the unspoken language of these two guys, they're walking into this facility for the first time. They had already done their homework on the facility. What equipment do you have in there?
Right.
Like most facilities, not all of it is on the website per se.
Right.
And they come in, and I'm just kind of what I affectionately call the patch bitch these days. And so my role is I'm going to be with them for the first day. And in most cases, I'm okay with that because it's like, you guys are going to be here for a week or two. I'm only here for a day or two, and see you later. Bye. It isn't always necessarily my cup of tea.
Right.
As an on-staff engineer at some place, a lot of times we had to do it, right?
Yep.
I mean, the gig
Yep.
comes in,
You do it.
didn't matter what it was, you're here, you get to go do that.
Yep.
It may not be what you were, what you think that you were placed
Right.
on this planet to do, but nonetheless, we would do those things. So once again, give me my train of thought back. I got off on this tangent.
Unspoken language
Yes.
here.
Okay, so
Unspoken language.
here we go. So I'm watching these guys, and the A2 on this, I'm showing him the patch bay, and I'm going, hey, I just need to make you aware this patch bay does not make sense. It has frustrated me from day one, and I'm going to show you why. And so I show him, and he goes, yeah, that is kind of odd, but now that you've shown me where everything is, I've got this.
Yep.
And I just went, I haven't heard that in forever.
Yeah. It's
And I'm watching
refreshing.
these guys work, and it just takes me back to those days when we were on all those sessions. And there was a time, and this happened with you and I, Jen. You know, we'd be at the end of a session. It's like, Jen, you want to take a break and let me take over for a little bit and give your ears a rest, give yourself a break, because that stuff's intense, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially when you go straight for like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just nonstop the whole time.
And so I'm watching these guys, and I'm going, this is amazing. I think that this is what's missing from home studios.
Oh, totally. When in a home studio, it's just you.
And it was absolutely amazing.
You don't
how-
call your assistant or your second to come to your house. You know, that's not something that happens.
Not very often.
No.
Except with Robert. Robert, I need help.
I am so
I gotta move this
sorry.
desk again.
I'm so sorry, bro.
I signed up for it. It's okay.
But no, like you're talking about too, where you're going for hours and hours and hours, and yeah, it's intense. And then you walk away and you feel dumber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just your brain is done. You know.
I've
Feel
given
like
you guys
your
a
brain
couple
is
of good
frying
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah, you can
and I've
hear it
given you
crackling.
guys
Yeah.
examples of that today. My brain just kind of, it's like, what were we talking? Okay. So I'm watching the camaraderie go on. The band loves these guys. They've got this under control. I'm thinking to myself, this is flipping awesome. I think that should be brought back.
Absolutely.
I think it should be brought back. And I think it should be brought back because I've always said, I think we all agree, 2 heads are better than 1, 4 sets of ears or four ears are better than 2.
There's a dynamic there too that one keeps the other grounded. One keeps the other in check. One watches the other.
And I think it comes back to accountability
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
I'll pose it as a question to you, Sterling. Were there days that you did not want to go to work?
Always. That's human nature.
Okay.
Even though it was my dream job,
Right.
there were days that I really did not want to be there for certain clients
Sure.
because they were assholes.
Yes.
So, yes, is a big resounding yes there.
And because you were accountable, you showed up anyway.
Absolutely.
I think that's what kept me going through those times too, was not only there were times where it would have been so easy for me to go, look, I'm not feeling well, living 8 minutes down the road. I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to make it tonight. But because of accountability, now we could get off into the Hope Pantera thing where it's all for one for all. You're either in or you're not.
You're in.
That's
or
the
you're
way
out,
it
brother.
works. And of course, we definitely wanted to be in.
Sure.
I wasn't going to miss that ever. I wasn't going to miss that. But back to the accountability stuff. There were times where I distinctly remember a moment. It was a day. It was an evening. And I was going through a really rough spot. It was with an individual that I couldn't really figure out. This person was kind of odd to me. And I called you up, and I think I said something to the effect of, my car is headed west, and it ain't turning around. And I'm supposed to be at that session, and I think I'm going to have to call on you to do it. And you did it.
When was this?
Oh, this was back in the mid-'90s.
You remember who the client was?
Yeah, but I'm not going to say.
No, I don't expect you to say it here, but
There's something about having accountability.
sure.
It's also something that I think that I'm really hoping that we can do as our collective group of AKB members, because not everybody gets to be an AKB member.
Just us.
Just us. Just us.
That's right.
Unless you can prove yourself. Accountability, showing up, doing what you're expected to do.
Yeah.
This goes with talking about the live audio. I know it's a side tangent, but it has everything to do with accountability. Showing up, not on the dot, but showing up,
a little before.
so that we can hash things out if there needs to be things hashed out. Getting ready, being prepared, things of that nature that I know personally that if it were left up to me, I'm a great procrastinator when it comes to certain things.
Me too.
Certain things, it's like, man, it's like living next door to Six Flags all over again. I'll get to that later. I'll do that later.
Yeah, it's easier to let yourself down than it is to let somebody else down, I think.
Yeah, because you haven't let yourself down if it's okay with you.
Yeah, you can make that okay instantly. Oh, I'm fine.
So that's a pro, I think, for the studio, brick and mortar side of things where
Totally.
people actually come to work. It is a job. It's not all shits and giggles. It's not all fun and games. It is taken seriously. We are professionals. That's what you pay us for. Here's another one, though, that I think may be a con, and that would be for society. I'm just going to say society as a whole, with an understanding that as independent engineers, producers, so on and so forth, we don't get the luxury of having paid vacations, days off, holidays, a steady paycheck, retirement,
security is tough,
all of
man.
the things that are out there.
That's the one thing that I worry about the most.
That's why you don't label anything. Then they'll have to call you.
Okay. I was going, I didn't teach you that. You label everything.
Figured that out on my own.
Okay. I'm going to put you in the corner if you don't stop that. But I think that there is something to not only the accountability, coming to work, holding that down as a job. And as I get older, I'm beginning to realize, because you and I both, I'm sure we all have friends that have those corporate gigs. You and I actually have friends. Jen, I think you know this guy as well. I'm going to mention Frank Salazar.
Yeah.
Frank was chief engineer at Dallas Sound Lab for a couple of years. He took that role on after being there for quite a while. And I actually told my wife, I said, I don't understand why he wants to play this corporate. He wants to be, a head engineer or a this or a that, but it's all corporate. And I go, I don't get that because, don't clip my wings. I need to be free. That's how I feel I need to be.
Right.
I need
Rock
to,
and roller.
I need to be able to roll with the punches. And I need to be able to go to Mexico City if that phone call comes, So nowadays I'm thinking, Frank might have gotten that right.
Oh, he totally nailed it. He totally nailed it.
So he's like the head dude now with, with real effects. It appears that life is going pretty good. Not to mention, we're talking about a guy who is highly, highly intelligent, highly sophisticated. Got me turned on to this 360 spatial the mixing of that.
Is that what they're calling it? Yeah.
And I mean, he's heavily into this to the point to where he's got guys now that he works for and with. They're dumping a ton of money into this newer technology.
Right. I'm just making albums
in stereo.
It's 2 channels.
2 channels, which is a whole lot easier than keeping up with.
Oh my
50.
God, can't imagine. But yeah, no, he got it right.
So y'all are saying corporate's the way to go?
No,
not
say
necessarily.
That, but
I'm saying the way to go is be contract labor for a corporate entity.
You're still accountable, but not as much.
Yeah.
Limited liability.
Sure.
LLC.
And plausible deniability.
There we go.
Plausible deniability?
Totally.
Yeah, I guess plausible deniability comes up in this job quite a bit. At least on the live sound gigs when you have a lot of different crews going on and you don't want to take responsibility for somebody else's thing.
He's fixing to go down a hole that I
that's
don't
a whole,
want to go
but
down.
yeah, sometimes it's better to.
That's a limited series of podcasts right there.
Yeah.
That's a small chain.
Yeah.
I'll just say it like this: if people only knew what goes on behind scenes at some of these events,
Oh, they're gonna find out with us sitting here talking to each other.
Ooh. I lost a console one night.
Uh-oh.
Was it? Yeah, it was your fault, right? Or was it the?
It was my fault. Yeah, it was my fault.
There's that
Oh, my
accountability again. That little devil.
It left the owner speechless. He goes, I've never been without words, but you just left me speechless with that one. I went, I'm not kidding. It's gone. It ain't here.
Wow.
He later told me later on, he goes, I wasn't overly worried about it because I knew that you had one just like mine. So if it didn't show back up,
There
I'd
you
just
go.
take yours.
Yeah. That's how that works.
Luckily, y'all found it.
We did.
Was it down at Dallas City Limits?
No.
Okay. Another story.
Any more pros and cons?
I think there's a whole bunch, man. I think it's all. I think we start getting off into it's relative to the individual situation.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, for me in my situation, even though I don't like it, it's a big pro. The whole thing is a big pro. I don't got to get in my car and go somewhere. I'm there most of the time. I can work with anybody from around the world. There's a lot of things about it that I don't like, but those are just personal tastes.
We could almost view it like, why wouldn't you? Let's say we're all on board with, okay, brick and mortar's the way to go, but you still have that ability to have that little workspace at home. So
Sure.
it's like, even if we decide, okay, always go for the brick and mortar, you're still going to have a little workspace someplace to.
There's always going to be work to be done.
Yeah.
Sure.
A little editing
Sure.
room.
It's part of the times, too. It's part of the advance of civilization, I guess, if you want to call it that, where it's like, I'm not going to sit here and defend the horse and buggy,
Or like the coal mining jobs.
Exactly.
Or whatever, yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and go,
My grandfather did coal miner. My dad was a
Exactly.
coal miner. I'm going to be a coal miner.
in the most broad sense of the word for me, it is a pro. So that's my vote. I've got my cons, but they're personal, and I'm opinionated and getting older and stubborn. And once again, you kids get off the lawn.
Even before we started recording, Jen brought up a thing too, which I'm learning more about. I guess brick and mortar could be a con, especially if you're a contract labor person and an independent. I like that term better, independent. Things like you can't write mileage off if you're going to a brick and mortar, even if you're contract labor, if you're doing that on a steady basis. I had that explained to me. It's like, Tim, you can't deduct mileage for that because everybody has to go to work. You
Right.
have to get in your car and go.
Right.
So that would be a pro for the home studio if you're working there on a regular basis.
Sure.
It's no big secret amongst ourselves. I drive about 60,000 miles a year.
Right.
And I'm going nowhere. I'm literally
Right.
driving
Spinning the
around here,
wheels.
right?
I think Ozzy
Much to
Osbourne
my
wrote
dismay,
a song about that.
I'm learning it's like, well, I'm a contract labor guy. Every place I work, my office, even though I have an office, a desk, and a phone, and I take the phone calls there at home, my real office is wherever a console is and shit to be recorded.
Exactly.
I had it explained to me. It's like, well, just because your office is where it is for the moment doesn't dictate that you can write that mileage off. And I'm going, well, that just throws my whole plan down the pooper because I could get rich off of this.
Totally.
Driving the kind of miles I
Sure.
drive.
I'm right there with
But-
you. I drive about 30 or 40 a year, so I'm right behind you.
I got the bad news just the other day. And it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a pro for the home studio is not having to drive 60,000, 40,000. Jen, so you've been in Texas now for a while.
Yeah.
How many miles are you driving a year?
I try not to look at it because it's quite upsetting.
Right?
But a very good pro for the home studio. So I don't know if you remember one of the sessions, I think you were on with me, where one of the voice actors was remote and he was communicating with us from a cruise ship.
Yes.
Wow.
And so he has his mobile rig and he has it at home too. But this guy, he can record anywhere, even on vacation, and get paid for it. And so the home recording studio works perfectly for him.
It does. Yeah.
Why would somebody want to record on vacation? I'm just curious.
Because they're
he-
being paid large
booked.
sums of money.
Gotcha.
He won't turn you down. He's like, let's do it. I'll get it done. Doesn't matter like what time of day.
Wow.
He has like a
That's
24-hour
commitment.
turnover time.
That is commitment.
True professional.
He's not married, whoever he is.
Oh, he
is.
is.
He has kids too.
He is. He's great guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess
Very
this
cool.
kind of touches on the point. What's a con for somebody might be a pro for somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a
Very
pro
good
for
point,
him.
Robert.
It's a con for the studios because as more voice actors get booked from home, they don't have to go to the studios.
Exactly.
So agencies don't have to pay that studio fee.
Exactly.
I'll give you another example. Ed Wallace with Wheels
remember Ed.
570.
Yep.
So Ed lives in Fort Worth. He's married. When he married his wife, the lady that he married, she owns a house in south of Dallas, some little town south of Dallas. And he basically told the radio station, he goes, look, I live in Fort Worth. I am not driving in to the radio station to do these commercials or whatever. So a pro for him. Now, we're also talking about a guy who is like very on top of microphones, the technology, the best of the best of the best. He built a place in his house, and once again, he's a business guy that is what I would call a local celebrity. He does a 5-hour radio show every Saturday. And now he does go to the radio station to do that show, or if they're doing a remote, he goes wherever he's supposed to go. But for ads and stuff like that, he built this place inside of his house. Beautiful console, a little Toft console. A beautiful, beautiful little setup with the deal. And I'm going, so if you've got the radio station, and he goes, Tim, I live in Fort Worth. I'm not driving to Dallas
Yeah.
to go do this.
That's insane.
And I know good and well that, when you're a personality and you're a voice talent, they're not paying you chump change to do
No.
that stuff.
No.
They're paying you pretty nice
Yeah.
to do your thing
John Wells did it.
for years.
Years
Still
ago.
doing it, probably.
No, he did it from his house for many years. He stopped going to studios back when I was starting, and that was almost 30 years ago. You know, he had it right.
Yeah, he did have it right. And he started off at a radio station, too, KZEW. So, yeah, that would be, I guess that would be a pro for the home studio, definitely. Not having to drive mileage. Can you guys think of any other pros for the home studio, or
You can
maybe
wear
cons for
whatever you want. You can be comfortable.
you can be comfortable? Okay, that's definitely a pro.
Yeah.
Some people are really good about their timing and scheduling, and so like whenever somebody inquires about being in the studio, they can give them this time. For me, the way I operate is like, oh yeah, maybe this day, just call me, whatever. I'm very loosey goosey, so maybe I just lend myself more to people just popping up or seeing hey, maybe he's available. Whereas, like, there's some people I know where it's like, oh, he's a very organized person. I don't want to go mess with him, but I have another friend over here. It's like, oh, I'll go knock on his door, see what he's doing. So I guess it's a person by person basis thing.
I guess it could
Definitely.
be. Yeah.
Definitely person by person thing.
Well, and one of the last things that I've started that I've learned to kind of do is put stipulations on the length of the session. Ever since I've been going out west out there, I like to, because that's going to be a question that comes up. Are we doing this as a daily, or are we doing this by the hour? How are we doing this? And for the most part, everyone's kind of got it figured out. It's like the daily's going to add up to what the hourly would be, but I want to make one thing like very clear. And that is that I'm not going to go past a 10-hour day anymore.
Right.
This guy and I, we deserve not to have to ever do that ever again, ever.
Oh, I won't. It's out of the question. Sleeping on the couch at the studio is not glamorous.
It's not.
Never was.
It makes you very grumpy. It does all kinds of things that we probably don't even know what it has done.
Bad for your
It's just
back.
physically and mentally.
The thing that I'm trying to say is that I've learned to kind of go, okay, so if we're going to do this on a daily, get your mind off the clock.
Yeah.
You just need to know that we're going to go this amount of time. And I usually will set it up.
Right.
I've been privy enough to enough Nashville sessions to where Nashville, it may be a lot of cookie cutter stuff coming out of there, but they've got it down to a system now.
Yeah.
And it is X amount of hours before lunch. You take a 1 hour lunch break. You come back, you cut for another 4 hours after that. Then you take a dinner break if it's going to be a long session. And then we'll wrap things up, a couple hours later. So they're going to get their 8 to 10 hours in. They have it broken up to where it makes sense. It's structured. It's organized. There ain't no, kind of hanging out. Well, what else do we have left to do? Even the long sessions that we used to do, the King Diamond sessions, the Merciful Fate sessions. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure we did a lot of that on the Pantera sessions.
We did 12 hours.
12 hours.
He was a stickler about that.
Yep.
When the little hand gets here, we go home.
There were times where, because of a subject matter that Sterling brought up, I think on the first podcast, talking about having to ship tapes literally around the world. Sometimes
before
we had to stay there for days.
Kids, I was in this business before the internet.
I've learned to get that out of the way right off the bat.
Yeah.
I want to put everybody at ease. You don't have to watch the clock. If we start at this hour here, 10 hours later, or basically 11 hours later, we're going to stop.
Yep.
I don't care where we are. It is now time to put that down and walk away from it.
Yep.
Maybe it was inexperience. Maybe it was us being taken advantage of. Maybe it was just what the job called for.
I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to be a part of it, and I didn't care. I didn't have anybody to answer to either. I was on my own. I didn't have a wife or a kid. Didn't have anybody to answer to. I could go home any hour, So I just wanted to get as much experience as I possibly could, and that's where that came from. Another version of I don't care. Okay. That's where my being there came from. Those crazy extended hours, 3 days with hardly any sleep.
The one thing that we knew about those sessions, though, there was an end to the means, or a means to the end.
Right.
In other words, they had a plan.
Absolutely.
It's going to go to the record label after
Yes.
this. It's going to be put out to the public after that. And we're hopefully going to make, a living from this.
Yeah.
So often, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because just about 10 times out of 10, anytime that I've had a group in, band, whatever, you might want to call those groups that are coming in, it could be even a personal project, and you kind of touched on a little bit of this as well, Sterling. When they don't know what they're going to be doing with that music or whatever the project might be when we finish with it, I've experienced so many disgruntled people along the way, and they'll want to blame it on anything but the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes me want to not quit, but it definitely gives me attitude. And just silly comments sometimes about stuff that a lot of times my client doesn't know the first thing about.
Right.
And the next thing you know is that here we go. They get into this whole thing, well, I want my money back, or can I get a refund on this here? Because this didn't turn out exactly the way I expected it to. And it's like, well,
sorry,
I wasn't the producer of it. You hired me as an engineer to handle this.
Right.
So I'm also learning how to handle disgruntled clientele, which it happens.
When a client becomes disgruntled with me, they are no longer my client. That's how I deal with it. Oh, you wanna go backwards in time now? Okay, we're not gonna go there. I provided a service. You pay me. That's all there is to it. I get that shit, dude. It happens to all of us. But when somebody gets disgruntled,
Jen has had it happen to her too. Or
we all have.
I'm
sure
a
Robert
little
has too.
trickery here, there, slight usage or sleight of hand usage of words. Hey, if you'll do this over here, we're going to do this over here. A lot of times, once again, and you and I have talked about this, Jen, where it's like, well, what is the purpose of, why are they doing this to begin with? And so here's my point, is that I'm learning to ask that question.
Sure.
A lot of times it will come up that they don't have a plan. And that is the red hot moment that I go, I'm not your guy.
Exactly.
I'm not the person that you think that I am.
Right. They're looking to you for
Exactly.
something you're not going to provide anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't make any wild ass promises, and I don't blow smoke, and that's how I deal with it. And if they want to go back in time, I just go, look, have a nice life.
Sure.
Nice knowing you.
And I'm learning too, not to say too awfully much beforehand about any of it, because I've learned that you just don't know how those sessions are going to go. You can't promise anything.
And it's okay to say no. The word no is a complete sentence. It's okay.
And a lot of people don't want to because they're like, oh, but I don't know when I'm going to get my next client.
That one thing has, and I had to learn this the hard way too. One thing has nothing to do with the other. That person's not going to call your next client and go, don't work with this guy.
Right, but it's just the fear of,
Yeah.
I just lost one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And word of mouth is huge, but at the same time, it's like you can't do that to yourself. You cannot run yourself through that
Something to be said
roll of barbed
about,
wire.
picking the right people to work with.
Yeah, that too. That has a lot to do with it, because I don't know about you guys. What's your experience in the industry part of it, the engineering part of the industry that you've been in? Hey, how many years have you been in?
I'd say about 4.
About 4 years. So, and you're roughly 5,
4 or 5,
6.
getting up
So,
there.
I don't know about you guys, but with Tim and I, we can spot a shyster 10 miles away. I mean, they literally can say 3 words, and it's like, there's something up with this cat, and that just comes from experience. I'm sure you guys have it too, where you can just read somebody very quickly. But yeah, that's another thing that comes with this, it's just an experience thing that they don't teach.
As an independent.
Yeah, as an
independent. That's the one thing that you and I didn't really have to worry about when we were at the Sound Lab, because we had Uncle Johnny and Uncle Russell.
They were watching our backs.
Making sure that the money was coming through the door.
Exactly.
And making sure that everything was taken care of. I would say, as a home studio owner too, last thing, I promise. Last thing. There's so many areas that we could talk about. Thinking about, as an independent, the legwork that has to go into you running your own business. Because like it or not, you're a business. If you're putting yourself out there as a professional and you're doing these things and people are paying you money, as Sterling said, by definition, that's what makes us professional, is being paid to do it. The whole idea of having to be an accountant, to be a bookkeeper, to be this, to be this, to be this, just does not float my boat at all.
It's the small business owner thing going on, right? I mean,
Yeah. You have to be everything.
Yeah.
All or nothing.
And it really, really, really gets under my skin, because in my mind, I ain't got time for this.
Yeah.
But the truth is that you better take time
Better
to
make
do
it.
it.
You better make it,
Because,
buddy.
man, I'm just telling you, Uncle Sam, he doesn't wait.
Nobody's going to do it for you either.
Nope. And here's another thing. No one's going to do it better than you.
Right. You're going to do it the way you want to, and you're
I
going
can
to learn
send all
along
my
the
stuff
way.
off to an accountant, and they're gonna spend X amount of time on it. And my sister-in-law said it very plain and clear. It's just numbers. You don't think about the dollar amount. That's the part that gets you. That's the part that always upsets you.
Yeah.
Is that you're thinking about dollars amount. For an accountant, it's just numbers. And I'm going, so if that's the case, I don't want to send my stuff to an accountant anyway, because they're not going to spend the kind of time on it that I would. But it really just pulls it out of me to have to sit down and go through that.
Pulling teeth.
But I'm getting better. Getting better.
Yeah. Progress, not perfection. Here we are.
Well, listen, folks, we're going to wrap this up. We've bent your ear quite long enough, I do believe, for at least this episode of Audio Knucklebusters. The next episode that I'm hoping to do is to get into the discussion about females in the studio environment, in production. Care to add anything to that, Jen?
Oh, it's a
Because
hot topic.
I think the idea here is I really would like to invite you back and have you as our topic, if you will, since you're a female.
Absolutely.
And since you're in the business,
Would
and
love
since you're my friend and you're a wonderful professional, I definitely would like to discuss these things. I did some homework and I shared with you Trina Shoemaker. For those of you who might be listening to this and who might be interested in females in the industry, that is definitely a name to look up. She's got tons of accolades, done tremendous amounts of wonderful work out there. But the sad story is that she's just one of lots of women that would probably do very well in the industry. And I'm just here to say that from a male perspective, we are all here to support that as well. We are here to support that because I've worked with women in the industry from time to time. As short-lived as it might have been for the time, those ladies were bad at what they did. And probably still doing it. I hope so, because they were really, really good at it. And you, my friend, are one of those ladies as well. I've watched you work. I admire your professionalism, and it's also one of the reasons why you're here. It's something that I feel like we should discuss more about. Sterling and I have talked about this, where maybe some of the reasons why women are not sticking to the production side of things as much, but definitely want to get into some of that with you. Know that you've got a few things up your sleeve too that you're working on personally, right?
Oh, I have a lot on my plate right now.
Okay.
Some goodies.
Yeah, we'll hold off on that until we have another episode where we can talk to you directly with all of that.
Yep.
Robert, you got anything else that you want to add to this?
No, just glad to be here. Glad to be a part of AKB.
Well, I'm glad that you're here too. Sterling, as always, man, I love you like a brother, man.
Thank you, man.
You are awesome. All of you are. Thank you guys for taking the time to make this possible today. And with that, we are going to say farewell for this episode, and we will talk at you guys later.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.